Welcome back. We are here again. Coach Argenal, highly decorated, on to his newest career challenge, head basketball coach, UC Riverside, the Highlanders. I'm not quite sure why that's the nickname considering it's flat. All in all, Coach, thanks again for coming back on the pod for round four, I think.
It might be three or four. I'm not sure which one it is, but I was surprised that it's kind of like chronologically keeping my life in line right now. I got to come on the show when there's a big change. So I appreciate you having me. Excited, and it's great to connect with you always. And I think that's the best thing about all this is you and I go right back to where we left off, and we just keep going. We both try to look a little younger every time we get on the call, but unfortunately, the grays are popping for me and for you too. So we're good.
Yeah, you're still in early phase of grays. My entire beard is white. Hopefully, you can push that off a little bit longer, but Father Time is undefeated, my friend. Let's do a recap here for
Yep.
people that want the full Gus Argenal experience. Go back and listen to the other episodes, but let's talk about where we are. So we landed, or I say you, I landed vicariously, but at Cal State San Bernardino, I think 3 years. You were there? 2 years?
2 years.
Two
2 years.
years. I run through that success, and then we'll get into the learnings later, but just give me the timeline of that, and then what led to this new opportunity and how we got there, and then we'll dive into the weeds on some of the other things.
Yeah, the last time I was on, it was October of 2023. I just gotten the job at Cal State San Bernardino and really was going through a move in my life that was a big one for me. Going from University of Arkansas, coming back to California, moving your family, taking this kind of, I always say, just betting on yourself, this leap of faith of, hey, this is your career. I want to get back into the head coaching chair. And sometimes it's a super hard thing to get a head coaching job, no matter what level it is. From junior high all the way to the highest level, it's so hard to get a job. So was lucky enough to go there. And really, I would say that I was so lucky, one, to take over a program that had been winning. Andy Newman, who worked for Bob Burden, a longtime head coach, did a great job there. And I knew walking into San Bernardino, the expectation of winning and being a top 10, top 25 program every year was there. But that was an exciting time for me. And taking over our first year, we had an unbelievable run. We inherited some guys that really grew into their roles. We brought in some really good players. They connected. We made a Final Four run. It was a magical first year run, and had one of the greatest years in school history. And then our second year was another great run, but totally different. Even more of a bullseye on the back. Top 10 team to start the year. We had multiple injuries. Reinvented our team like three or four times, and then ended up making the NCAA tournament again and getting to the second round and having a really, what I would say a great year again. And then you know how this goes in coaching and in business. I really have not been looking for another job. It's the opportunity that comes about, and UC Riverside being 15 or 20 minutes away from Cal State San Bernardino in the Inland Empire. The athletic director here, Wes Millett, is one of the most respected on the West Coast. And then obviously with our UC roots, just being able to be at a university that has so many resources, to be at a place that I'm comfortable with, and then to be in the Big West, which there's too many connections in the Big West with all of us, Jim Less and Dedrick Taylor and all these guys. But just so honored and lucky to be here now as the new head coach. We just started summer workouts, so we're rocking and rolling, and the journey continues.
Love it. Let's dive right into that then, because it's what we always lead with, which is what did you realize right away that you needed to figure out? And so you've been in the SEC, obviously, the highest level of NCAA basketball. And then the CC2A is one of the best conferences in Division Two. And now you're going into the Big West, but you're going Division One, Division Two, back to Division One right now. And it's only 15 minutes away, but it's different. So what just in the first 2 months are you like, okay, let's retrench on this one?
So there's a lot, and no, that's exactly what it is. Things change. This is what's going on right now. To just put it out, there's never been a time in the last 22 years that I've been doing this that things are changing every day, truly every day. Whether it's revenue sharing, whether it's NIL, whether it's scholarship limitations, whether it's the recruiting calendar, everything is changing per month, and I've never seen it like this before. And so that's the first thing, is that nothing you think is going to be going on today is going to be going on a month from now, truly. So it's a challenge. It's kind of exciting, but there is a little bit. The one thing that when I stepped into it, I've been at this level for over a decade, Division One and then Division Two as well. But that was the one thing, is understanding that this is changing right now so much. NIL had started when I was at Arkansas. So I was at the highest point of understanding that, doing it in the SEC, and the players we recruited have top two class. But it is truly that everybody says it's like fluid. It is right now. It is changing. The rules for NIL right now today are literally going through changes, checks and balances. And so that's the first piece of it. The second part of it is, though it's ever changing, I had to remind myself to, hey, it is exactly the same thing. Timing's a little different. You have the guys in the summer. Today we're going into our third workout of the summer. So I had to remind myself, like, okay, now I have to. I thought I did a really good job. We did a really good job as a staff of having our players really play their best in March. And so now when you start earlier, this guys love to be work, they love to work out. They love, but you really have to help them manage their calendar clock so that they're not wearing themselves out mentally, physically, everything, and they're peaking in February, March. That's the challenge. And I've learned from some really good people how to do that. But again, I had to, cycle my brain into knowing what we have to do with that.
Love that. Let's talk about that. Our girls water polo coach is elite at having his kids peak at the right time. And we all go through different variations of it. But it's funny because my boys water polo coach and I were just talking about when we start, and he wants to start a little bit earlier than the rest of the teams do because football gets a week extra and I want to be able to do what they do. And I'm like, just pump the brakes. It's going to be fine. Talk a little bit to what you've learned after 20 years of doing this at the highest level about what each, let's call it micro slash macro cycle of the year should look like, including the summer to preseason, the regular to postseason. What are your takeaways after all this time?
Have to be really well thought out. Like, why are we doing what we're doing? Like, example, this is our first week of summer. We're getting guys' physicals done. Some guys are trickling in a little bit later because of travel. We have an Australian player that's coming in from Australia. Everybody wants to be going full throttle right now. Everybody's excited. They want to be in the gym. Like I always tell my assistant coaches, this first week, everybody's going wild. And it's just pumping the brakes. It's reminding them of what this race looks like. And I always compare everything to a race. You've heard me say it a bunch of times, but it's like, this is literally, you're in the starting block. Like you're prepping, you're getting your feet right. You are literally preparing for your first step. So like right now for us, this first week, we're just having workouts. We're trying to get their bodies used to like going hard and teaching them in the weight room how we operate and how we talk and all those bare things. But with each one, like in the summer, we call it the summer training camp. It's 6 to 8 weeks, however you want to use it. And really, I would say this, because I work for Eric Musselman, by the time you get done with the 8 weeks, we should be able to play a game, but we'll in no way be in game ready shape, physicality. But mentally, we should know what we do in a dead ball situation in the corner, in the coffin corner, or what we do if we're down five, how we press. Like we need to know all those things, but we may not be able to do them physically. So it's really just giving the techniques for all the stuff that we're going to do in certain situations that we can still build on when they come back in the fall. But it's a balance, and we only have an hour really a day. We do 4 days a week. We do an hour, and I'm not trying to push that in any way in terms of like when that hour hits, we are walking off. I don't ever do more than that in the summer or in the fall because I can barely focus that long anyway. Again, I just think that with each part of the year, and one thing that I've learned too is a lot of times, unfortunately, your team has to get in better shape, learn how to play together during games when you start a season. Like if they're already hitting on all cylinders the first game, you might be in trouble. There's pieces of your defense that can be doing that. There's pieces of your offense. Maybe you're really good at posting up early in the season, but if you have all that figured out already and you're dialed, it's probably not good. You need to know what you want to look like, but you don't want to look like that yet.
And how did you land at that conclusion, right? Because when we're younger, you want to be ready to go in the first game and you're trying to strive for that. And the running joke is always if practice was clean and it was great, there was something wrong, right? Because it's if it's messy, you're getting better. So like how did you land at that conclusion and how do you hold yourself accountable to that?
I always just look at the teams that have been the best teams I've been a part of from my playing days, even like what we were like in the beginning and who we were and like what kind of morphed into. And then I look at some of the teams that started off with those 9-1 starts and we fizzled like January into February. Not that you're going to hold your team back because you can't control their race in some ways, right? Like they're going to do what they do. And obviously the teams that have continuity, those are the ones that they can do it fast or are already there. And you have to pick some small things to really get better at. But we're like right now, for us, it's just like the simple thing. What is our identity? Like in the next like 4 weeks, can we come up with it? We already know one. We better offensive rebound because we're not shooting the ball very well. Two hands, offensive rebound. But it's just seeing the teams of the past and then the teams that have made the really good runs that I've been a part of. They've had these kind of ebbs and flows with the season, and then they've hit rock bottom, and then they've been able to be tough enough to get back together. And again, I take that from all the coaches I've been with, but the ones that have had just the quality seasons, I look at them and they're almost all similar. They really struggled in the beginning of January, and by the end of February, they were really, they had something that they were playing for. They were really motivated the whole way through.
No, no doubt. All right, let's look at the last 2 years. What have you added to your toolbox through that experience that you did not possess before San Bernardino? And to help you process that, what have you let go of that you used to think was important, right? So you can take that however you want, but like you had a 2 year run that we talked right before you went into it. Now we're on the backside debriefing it. What are you bringing with you that you didn't have before?
Well, one, I have so much respect for coaches that, again, people that were at San Bernardino before I was there, the Jeff Olivers, the Larry Reynolds of the world, and people that know coaching know those guys, those names, Jim Ducey, the ability to win year after year somehow and finding those ways, the teams that we were around at UC Davis, just to do that, I have so much respect, even because everybody says, oh, those teams are, whether they're well funded or they get the best players because of their location. That's all great. But you have, and again, an NC school like Arkansas, like you have to bring it all together. And then you have to do the number one thing, which is not lose. Like that's the number one thing. And so I've learned that like our number one rule at San Bernardino is we're not allowed to lose. And you can say, and that's in terms of, hey, you're expected to compete in the classroom and be really good. This team this year, when I left, they're one of the best teams ever. They had a 3.2 GPA for the whole year, like one of the highest of all time. And that maybe doesn't go along with San Bernardino all the time, right? When you think about that. But the day to day with, again, managing a team with the target on their back, I really started talking about the truths all the time. Hey, people are going to want you to lose. You're at Cal State San Bernardino, kind of like the evil empire in some ways. Like you have to be able to handle that. And I think I really spoke probably the truth to my team the most I ever have. This is what you're really good at. This is what we're struggling with. But I was very honest from the very get-go because I think that if you eliminate the fluff, they know that it's about, hey, we're just trying to make sure that we're our best version of ourselves. Coach isn't lying to us. And it was about that end thing, being the best team we could be. And obviously winning, like I said, is the big part of it. But that's also with anything. It's like telling these guys the truth right away. That's something I've gotten much better at. And again, not that I was lying to players, but I'm helping them along. Hey, you're struggling to shoot the three right away. No, you are shooting this three really poorly. Here's why. You don't work on your game enough. You think you do. You're not doing all the things. And in a month, we're going to start the season and you will not play because of your lack of work on your game. And before, I think I was trying to help guys along. I think now the summers, the fall, in our day and age of college basketball, you don't have the time to slowly build people up. It's got to be to the point, a little bit intentional, transactional. You could say that that's what it is, but it's just, hey, it's laser focused on this is what we got to do. And I think at times before it was, let's get everybody to this part of the season happy, excited. And unfortunately, I think that you have to paint the true reality much earlier now.
So on that idea of truth telling, again, when we're younger, we want to try to set everyone up for success and whatever that looks like. And there's, I'll just say, a fear of potentially undermining their confidence by telling them like you're not good. You said I've gotten a lot better at it, and it's one of the things that Rich and I would always joke about is like, clear role definition is the most important thing you can do. How did you get to that point where you finally realized, like, I'm just gonna rip the band-aid off and tell you so that we can build together rather than me trying to soft encourage you?
I would say this. I would say that you realize that the things that you've done are what really help a player. Oh, you said it like knowledge, there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom, right? I think I've heard you say that before. And once you've experienced it and you go to all these places, I was at East Bay, then you go to Nevada, then you go to Fullerton, then you go to Arkansas, and you say, hey, these are the things that I was really about working. Well, then you know that there's no wiggle room with this. Like, I know what you have to do. There's just another air of confidence. Not that you know exactly, because I could think all those things are going to be great. And then come November, I'll be calling you crying on a drive home after we play some good team. But you know that this is what works. And I think it's winning and having the experience of having your team go to a point in the season where you accomplish what you want to accomplish. You've been there. They always say the biggest indicator for a team or a program to advance in the NCAA tournament is whether or not their coaches, their players have done it before. That's the biggest indicator. And so once you've been there, and we've been around really good coaches as a young age, but you also, the more and more you do it, the more and more what has to be done to get to that point. And you're okay with a player feeling a certain way because you know you're doing it for them to be the best version of themselves, and then hopefully the team to be that. But you can lose some guys along the way, and you have to pick them back up and make sure they understand their value to a team. And that's hard for guys right now, especially because I had 10 one-year players last year at San Bernardino, one-year guys. So they're all there for the same reason. And how do you get them to be together? That's a challenge. That's a hard thing to do now.
Let's dive into that, shall we? Because you've had some success doing it. And if I am to understand the landscape correctly, that is essentially where everyone is, right? You're now basically building one-year teams. The idea of a redshirt, 5-year athlete program is gone, even at the elite levels, right? And so what works, what doesn't? How do you shift your mindset to go from Mikey, who's an 18-year-old, is going to be really good for us as a junior, to he's not even going to be here? Talk through that change and what you're doing to navigate that.
I think it's a question that everybody's asking everybody. It's just the reality of what we're dealing with. And the reality of, I just said this to one of our players when we were walking out yesterday. He's injured, and we were talking about him redshirting at his previous school, and then he came here, he got hurt. So he's a returner for us. But I said, it's not your fault in any way. Your crew, your generation, not like I'm some old guy that walked through the snow to school every day, but you guys are used to change. 2 years out of high school, 2 years finishing there, maybe one last year, you change the U programs. And then in college, that continues. It's what you're not used to the same voice over and over again. And I can't be upset about that. That is what it is. We were used to, you were looked as an outsider if you were a transfer. I remember that going, I would never transfer. Or these guys are transferring. They're crazy. I remember these guys coming into Davis, maybe a couple of transfers, like Phil Rasmussen, who I was on his pod. Like, we were like, this guy's transferring? It was looked down upon. And so you have to adapt and adjust. I think that's like the Marines or the Navy SEALs. That's like their number one thing. If you're not doing that, and I had to learn that too. And I always go back to who you worked for, but like Eric Musselman really helped me with that. A G League, a semi-pro coach. That's his whole career. And then he goes into college and he continues to do it. He's ahead of the game, but you have to be able to accept that piece of it. That's going to happen. It's okay. You can still have an unbelievable relationship with those young men, even though it may be shorter, or even though there may be these other stipulations on what you're doing in their career. Maybe it's, and again, now some players come to a mid-major so that they can go to a high major. They go to high majors, they go to the NBA. It's what it is. And some people use college as a way to find the best financial means they can. And for 1 year or 2 years or 3 years or 4, there's guys that are playing 6 years at the high major level at 4 different schools right now. So take all that out. At the end of the day, it comes down to what I always used to say when it comes to an Anthony Black, a Nick Walsh, a Nick Smith, a Jordan Walsh. Are you trying to get them better every day? Focus on that. Are you trying to help them be better men? Like, are you focusing on them the time that you do have them? And then you have, hit those things head on. I think that's the number one thing, is just hitting it head on with the conversations that have to be had in such a transactional time. You have to still keep it about them having a good college experience, because they still want that. They don't know what it looks like though, because it's so different. But you still have to embrace that for them, hopefully. And if they want that, then they'll jump into it. I have certain guys that want it and they take it. Some guys don't want it, and you can't force that.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your take on that, right? Because obviously 25, 30 years ago when we're going through university is different than these guys. But I never even thought about that idea that they still want a college experience because it's not presented in that way to the mass media. What's that like for those kids who may only be there 1 year? Right? And it's like they're not having the normal kid experience that you're having in college. They're almost, well, they are, like, because they're getting paid. They're professionals. So, like, how does that shift? Take the basketball away for a second. How are you now not dealing with college kids anymore versus those that should be and maybe want to be college kids?
Well, here's the number one thing in our universities, and it's because of COVID and all those things. Now there's less classes that are offered in person. UC Riverside is a great example of a school that's kept the on-campus, in-person classes going because of the academic standards that are here. And I know there's a lot of other schools that are like that in California, especially, but that's a piece of it. Like, these guys, a lot of them they will go through a whole year and not have to come on campus other than for practice. Think about that. If you're talking about the college experience and how that affects, that's one thing right there that I have to remind myself about. They don't have to go to the library. They don't have study hall in the library. They don't do the things that I did. Now that's different. They don't, a lot of the schools, like they moved away from fraternities and sororities. They don't have as much on campus because there's not as much life on campus. So they don't experience that. They don't walk around on a day-to-day basis on these campuses and trying to get from class to class, getting to know people, stopping. They don't eat on campus as much because they're not on it as much. But then there are these other students that come onto a campus like UC Riverside and they see, wow, like this is unbelievable. And they walk around during the summer and they get excited about that. And so like I do things, like our guys don't even know. Like, I'm going to get them up one of these mornings and we're going to like the old remember the time, run through campus. Hey, there's the history building. There, we'll stop in front of them. There's the communications building. You got to do those things to me to keep it like we used to have it.
This is a library that you should probably go in once in a while.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say this, I'm very upfront with the parents, the family, whoever's in the recruiting process. What do you want out of this? And so for each person, it's very different. And obviously, it's always really centered on basketball and then their degrees. And then the social part is third and fourth. But I really try to make sure that I like, if they want this, that I'm trying to give them that and help them understand what they can get out of a school like this. So the people that have been on these big campuses, there's so many resources that they can use and tap into. So I just try to make sure that with each individual, I want to try to deliver on the experience that they want. If you don't want the college experience, if that's not your deal, okay, we can't force it. It's just like I can't get everybody to talk at the way that I want them to talk, but I got to get them to do some of it. And so I'm trying to meet them halfway with what they want and what I want.
Yeah. Well, it's also fascinating because if you think about the math as a guy that's been at the higher end of this, right? Even guys that are playing at the top end of the SEC aren't going to be pros.
No
And
doubt.
yet they're pushing all their chips into this basket and they're missing a 4 year experience that most of us look back on and we're like, that was really transformational for me. And that was the network that I still lean on. And I was texting Joe Carroll the other day, who's a UC Davis guy that was a senior my freshman year that, my uncle ended up helping become a lawyer and now he's helping mentor my daughter. And it's like, we don't spend 4 or 5 years there. I don't have that relationship.
And this weekend I have a teammate coming over to my house this weekend from college. Brett Lance is going to be over there hanging out. We're going to go to dinner and his wife, and they'll still get that. It's just that's what I'm saying. The coaches that get this right now, you have to be able to peel the onion way faster. You need to be a professional cook. You need to be able to chop this stuff up quickly. Yeah, I'm serious. Like you have to be able to get past it. You have to have real conversations quickly. You can't just wait. I think before you could wait for it to happen because it was going to happen. Now you have to go get your relationship. As weird as that sounds, everybody says organic is so important. That's a big piece of it. But you also have to you have to tell them what it looks like. Like I tell the guys, like, look, I want there to be brotherhood in this locker room. I want you guys to love each other. You don't right now at all. You guys like each other. Like love, brotherhood, caring for each other. That's what I want for you. That's you may or may not get it. The greatest teams, I know this for a fact, there's a huge level of that. And you can say whatever word that is that you want to put that in, togetherness, however, connectivity. But that's what I want for you. And then the greatest thing now, though, is even in the last couple of years, even at the Cal State San Bernardino, when I was at Arkansas, there's these moments where you see it. It happened a lot more, I think, 25 years ago, but you see this group text pop up where they're like, they send a picture of one guy and they're all making fun of it from him in the locker room this one day. Or Jalen Williams just went to the NBA championship and he got it done. And suddenly, like all of our crew from Arkansas, which was the highest level, they're all like embracing Jalen. Like, and and that's pretty cool when you see that there's this family that you maybe don't see. And so there's these moments. It's just maybe not as consistent as what we're used to.
For sure. It's like you said, that the time is so condensed that you shoehorn some things into the crock pot before they're ready.
Exactly.
Let me ask this question in regards to your perspective shifting now that your kids are older, right? So we just talked about you got one that's going to be a sophomore, one that's going to be an eighth grader. They have their own sports experiences. You are tertiarily connected from afar. But
Yeah.
what are you learning walking alongside their journey that is helping inform your own professional life?
That's always a tough one because whenever I'm going through, and I know you are too, is like how you manage your children in their playing careers and their dreams and aspirations. I always think it's actually really hard for coaches, sons, daughters, because they see Well, if you go to a certain level, like my sons see the type of guys that are walking around in here and the type of physicality and the type of work that they're putting in, and it can be intimidating, I think, for them, like at times. But it also, what I'm taking from it right now is like understanding how important it is to have empathy towards the parents and families you're dealing, making the extra call, I think, to a parent when their son's doing really well, just, hey, don't really want to talk about it, Tim, but I just want you to know Justin's really competing his butt off. And I'm really proud of him. Boom, hang up. Because you don't want to get past too many, you don't want to go too far into it. Like, I think those calls and those texts at times, they go a long way with parent that. And again, I think being somebody that can still talk to a parent about, like, an example, last year we had a point guard, that really, he literally just, he fell apart in one of these games, and we got beat by 20 points. We're a top 20 team, and he gave in. And I remember that Friday in between the Saturday game, we're all in a panic, and I'm like, what am I doing? I'm calling them all. Like, we need to talk, and we need to we talked like an hour and a half. And I think that those moments where she really felt like that she knew how much I cared about him, because I was worried. For me, it just reminded me, like, wow, like sometimes we as coaches, we're so worried because we want to keep that distance. But I think sometimes you got to let the parents back in certain ways, and you got to, make them feel a part of it too, because it's not just college basketball, it's their lives, it's their son's life and his experience, that you want them to feel like they're a tiny bit of a part of it. Not too much, because we don't want them getting overboard, but that's something that really stands out to me. And then also how hard expectations are on your children and on your players. I learned a lot about what the car ride home should look like. It also then it's helped me realize what the bus ride home should probably look like with the team, or the locker room should probably look like after a game, or the next day, like the timing of when you talk to them. Because me and my wife get in the car, and we're both former players, and we both are like, why do you not dive on that ball? Why did he miss so many layups? Why did he? And we're forgetting all the good things he did, man. He hit 2 threes. Like, shoot, I was the worst shooter ever. He just did more than I did in the whole season in one game. I think just the timing of how you communicate to players is really important. And you just learn a lot about it. Empathy is my number one word.
Yeah, give me a specific of how that's translated because I think the post game deal for me a few years ago, you and I have talked about this.
Yeah.
It's just, okay, celebrations. All right, I'll see you tomorrow. Right, where it's just like we're going to put a positive pin in this, regardless of what happened, and we can deep the stuff that we need to dig into later. And you mentioned the bus ride home, right, where those are quiet sometimes or frustrated. Like, what is the real applicable things that you've now done? Maybe not specifically because you're learning from your kids, but that you have found is way more useful for everyone at this stage in your career.
That's number one. Less is more. Always talk to a team the same way you would after a win-loss. Really make sure that, again, that's so what I mean by that is like you get in your car with your son. Ace is my son. We're talking about the most. Hey man, you really tried to rebound. You cut better today. Like, that was good. You defended. You got to foul less. Like, really simple things. And then he looks at you and just stares at you, right? It's the same way that your team does when you get in the locker room after certain things. I think you really have to celebrate when they do well. Like, example, like my son had a tournament. He played really good. He hit a couple threes. He did good. Afterwards, I was like you have to make these little moments be a big thing. Like, we're going to McDonald's, literally driving back from Vegas. I'm like, you can't just get the 10 piece. Like, we're going 20. We're celebrating. We're getting the shake. It's just the same thing with your team when you get on. No, we're gonna walk on the bus right now. We're gonna like turn the speaker on, and we're gonna like enjoy the moment of this, because you don't get a lot of them, right? I think that's totally applicable. I enjoy those. Like, you have to, because it means a lot to them, because they know it's coming when you're in, right. They know that piece of it. And then I think that, like, how you embrace them after, like, when my son doesn't play well, he's almost in tears. He knows what he did poorly. Arm around him, give him a hug. Sorry, man, you didn't play your best. It's okay. Same thing I do with the guys. Like, literally, like walking out, I got your back. I love you. And it's the same as I think I say to my son. There's no different from that word than I said to my point guard last year. And it's the same feeling. And the parents see that.
I'd also say this. You asked me how our trip to Australia was, and one of the things that I'm reflecting on while you're talking are two things that stood out to me is we finished our last game. We played six friendlies over the course of 2 weeks, and the other team was waiting for us to come and eat. And I went in the side room, had them all sit down, and it was just like, look, I just want everybody to take a minute to reflect on where we are, what we just did, and that this is the end of the games. We still got 3 days of whatever we're going to do, but it's like, give me a takeaway, something you're going to take back with you, something you're appreciative of, right? And
Yeah.
they went around the table and we just named those things so that you don't forget. And then the last day, my son and I stayed for an extra 8 days and went and saw my family and did some other things. And like I had a couple moments during the trip where I'm like, damn, I don't get to spend time with him like this, like ever. And I never really get to tell him that I appreciate him. And so it was like we're sitting in the airport and I just gave him a hug. I'm like, hey man, listen, I love you. I've had a great time hanging out. I wish we did this more. And it's like even those moments when you don't think about, I'm being reminded of as you're talking. And those are the things that I think those of us that run a million miles an hour all the time don't take a beat enough. So if you're listening, you're one of those guys, try to label a few of those things while you can before that time is gone.
Yeah. There's, well, and I do it in coaching, I do it in parenting more, and my assistants have done a really good job with me. And I think, again, I go back to just in the last 4 or 5 years, when you're in those special moments and you're just sitting in that locker room after one of those like special games, you just start laughing. You're like, what did we just do? And I think that also you do that with your family. Like we were talking about our sons, like he's going to be a sophomore already. Jeez Louise, I always just count it by summers. I only have 2 more summers with this guy. Like, and that really gets me. I'm an emotional guy. Probably that's my detriment, is that part of it, passionate, but emotional. But I think we also do it. I do it with coaching too. I know how this season is going to go really quick. Like when the season started, I put up our first team meeting day, and then hopefully, when we're playing the conference tournament championship game on March 14th, whatever that is. But I told him, I'm like, this time you're gonna see how quickly it goes. This is gonna be crazy. And then and we don't take advantage of enough. I try to do it. It's really hard, but I think you do have to stop yourself. And like you just said, I really like what you said is make our players, make our people in our wives, our kids, like verbally say, we were sitting around after my son's game that he won, and we were sitting there. It was my other son's birthday, and we're like, we try to do the thing where you got to say some stuff about your brother here, and like we all laugh, but he's like, all right, give us 3 or 4 positives about Bo, and they'll start laughing, and he's cool. You can talk to him. He's a good person to look up to. But those, I think, you have to do that with your team too, right? Pickups, put ups, have them verbalize what we're doing well as a team. I think if you do that more, the more there's appreciation because they're actually stop and think.
Let me go back to this, which we've talked about ad nauseum, right? The boys have grown up playing multiple things throughout their lives, right? I'm sure there's pressure coming from all sides at some point for them to specialize. I know as a collegiate coach, you're generally getting they're unfinished products, but they're finished in regards to they're not sampling anymore, right?
Yep.
I am now dealing with the annual parade of athletes coming in to talk to me about, Coach, I don't know if I want to play football this year. Not me as the basketball coach, me as the athletic director. And
Yeah.
it's like, you need to play football. You need to do this. Like, don't give this up. You got one season. Talk a little bit about your wisdom as a top end collegiate coach in one sport and the value of continuing to pursue other endeavors, both as it relates to getting great at your favorite, but also just as a life foundation. Because it's like, I'm tired of fighting this. And I'm not fighting a kid or a parent. I'm fighting the youth sports industrial complex that is telling people things so they can make more money at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that the hard part right now, which we all know, is that more is what everybody thinks it has to be going on. And the more of basketball, the more individual workouts, the more skills training, the more, and that's it's hurting. Guys are getting worn down. My son's team's going through football wise. They're doing so much practice wise, and then they're going outside and they're getting more training. They're actually wearing down their bodies. They're breaking down. They're doing the same movements 5 hours later that they just did during the day. And so right there is my first point. They're different movements. That really helps you. You become a more like movable, being able to be like a multi-sport athlete allows you to be a multi-talented mover, cutter athlete. Like you can do different movements. And my son plays football and basketball. Like those are two totally different things. It really helps him. He's got to get faster. He's got to get quicker. He's got to get more athletic. He's got to be stop on a dime. Like you can't just do that on a football field. Those are things like he plays both and he knows that maybe one he's better at. That's okay. You're not going to be best at everything. But he enjoys it. And I would say this. You also don't want to force them to play two things because mentally they can also drain them. That's the thing they got to get through with multiple sports, in my opinion, is you get done with one, and then the hard part is you got to ante up. And once you get through a week or two, then you're back. So I would say this to all the parents and to anybody that getting multi-sport athletes to do it is get them through the first week or two, and then they're back and loving the game. It's the hard part is they're not as good when they restart. And it's really hard to play both of them throughout the season. You can do a little shooting on a Sunday and go do basketball during football, but it's really, to me, what I've learned is it's the start, the restart that really is hard for multi-sport athletes. Once they get through that, they're back to who they are and they feel the same. But yeah, it's what everybody says. Doing things cold turkey is super hard, right? Like stopping and starting. So I think that's the biggest thing that I would say is just get through that and too. But my other son also, he got a little bit burnt out of football. Like his body was, he didn't really want to do it. And you do grow out of certain sports with your
For
body.
sure.
It's
Yeah.
totally okay. But if there's still that passion for it, don't stop it because I'm not as good in this one and I got to be great and I can only do this. I always just believe you need to be a great athlete. The best athlete you can be makes you the best player you are in every sport. You can't be a great athlete if you don't do athletic things. That's I
Well,
always believe that.
the other thing that I think we run into that nobody ever really wants to name, though, Gus, is that I am the best player on the field in this sport, and I am the ninth guy on the basketball team, and I might not get in every game, and that is tough. How do you, in a soundbite, capture the value of being in that role for somebody who's on your team now, or who is working with your wife, or working with some of your friends that are professionals, or hell, even you navigating the landscape of the network that is college basketball?
You have to play every role. I say this in coaching. The one thing that I will say I've done is I've been in every role in this business, from the GA, which I kind of essentially is a manager when you start, to you're the head coach, right? Those are all the things in between. I've been every one of those stops. For a high school student, a college student, to be the guy that has to take the big shots or be that person during a game, to also be the guy that has to watch and know going into a game they probably won't play. Talk about a respect for both of those like situational people. And as a player, I was a freshman that got to play a little bit more. I was the redshirt freshman. I was a sophomore that had a slump and didn't really do work on his game. I was a junior that was getting better and then got hurt. And then I was a senior that kind of saw it all come together. It worked out pretty well. But I didn't score the most. I wasn't the best player, but I just appreciated it all. So I wouldn't have been that senior unless I'd gone through all the other stuff. It's the same thing that we're talking about with the team right now with the players. They have to, you got to feel all those moments. And then the hard part is as parents, when there are kids, we have to teach them how to be a good teammate when they're not in. My son went through something which I thought was really good for him. We went on a vacation and 10 days away, 9 days away, we come back. He didn't start anymore. He was on the bench. Okay. Yeah, this is what it feels like. You missed 4 practices. Like now you have to earn your right to be able to play more again. And then he struggled for a while and it got even, he actually dipped even more. And so then he had to get himself out of it. But then he got himself out of it. And then a month later, he's playing better basketball than he was before. But he went through it and it was like some hard car rides, like mad at himself, parents for going on vacation, the coach for, but great learning lessons. I think you have to feel all those different emotions to really appreciate the positives when they happen.
That's the value of athletics, right? Is that it's training for life through the vehicle of sport, because life's not fair. Do you think any of us are prepared for what the hell's going on globally right now or national? Like, given where we were, let's say 12 years ago, 8, 6, 4, the last 6 months, the stuff that's in the news today, it's like, yo, like life ain't all whatever, sunshine and flowers.
No doubt. And if we don't allow our players, our kids, our coaches to understand, like, you got it. That's one thing that I will say we are missing in college basketball right now is the understanding. The development piece is still here, but nobody wants to go through the hard year. And the hard year means I can't have a good year here because I had a hard year. That's what the problem is right now. Everybody is running away from what they just experienced because they look at the coach, the program, the teammates as the reason why. And I went through it. My biggest lesson I learned was Jed Medela. Nobody knows that name, Nobody will ever know it. He was a manager for us at UC Davis, and I always tell the story. Thought I was the big guy. I was playing. I was a sophomore, and in the crucial moment, I went through. My wife always makes fun of me. I had like yips from free throws, and they looking down the bench, and suddenly they subbed in Jed Medela at the end of the game with 30 seconds left to ice the game at the free throw line instead of me. And I remember I walked out. You have to feel like that was a moment where I'm like, Jed does, and I look back and go, Jed had worked. He made free throws every day in practice. He earned it. And it wasn't about, it was the coaches knew that. They knew what was going to help us win. And I would do the same thing right now to myself. And so you have to be able to go through that. And then the good thing was that when I walked out to the parking lot, I remember I told my, I'm going to transfer. Like I'm going to go home. I'm going to walk on it, St. Mary's. I remember I told him that. And he said, "Yeah, you think St. Mary's is really going to take you? Are you kidding me? You need to go actually work on your game and get better. That's embarrassing, and you need to figure it out." And I had a dad that told me that. I drove home and talked to my friends. They probably all made fun of me, and Jed probably showed up and was making fun of me too. And then I got a little bit better. So it's like, but I had good direction too from my dad and my mom.
Great story. And how do you take what your dad was for you in that moment, knowing that, let's say generously, 5 out of 10 of modern parents aren't that?
Yep.
How do you partner with them and the athlete to help all of them understand that is a much better approach than coach doesn't know what he's talking about?
It's hard. We had a couple of guys that just got here to campus, and I talked to one of their moms about the call. I always say this, the call is coming. And I watched it with the mom because I had heard it from a guy that I worked with named Ronnie Brewer, who played in the NBA. He was at Arkansas, and he gave this speech to the recruits, which I loved. It's called "The Call Is Coming," and the call is coming whether it's about, hey, summer's so boring here on campus because nobody's here. I'm not really having fun. It's not social. The call is coming about coach is getting on me about this. Like it's coming, so we need you to support us. Like we're supporting your son. Like you need to know right now. We're telling you we care about your son. We're going to do something that's dumb. He's going to do something that's dumb at some point. We're going to both clash for sure this year. Like have our back. Like I think just telling parents and talking to them about the fact, like this is the truth. Again, going back to the truth. This is what's going to be said. This is what's going to go on. I know it because I've experienced it every time I've seen the good, the bad, and then just having clear, true conversations with them about that. And like I said, it's good. Chuck Daly, you got to give them the worst case scenario that's going to happen so that they're ready for it and they can handle it when it does happen.
Do you have any anecdotes over the years that you can share with our colleagues, hell, myself, that may help them run towards the conflict more than people normally would? Meaning that my most difficult parents are usually the ones that are most supportive once we get through the initial
Yeah.
chafing. And it's, I don't want to talk to them. They drive me nuts. And then when I finally sit them down and I'm like, listen, we need to get through this. And then they're like on Team Climo. And it's like, I
Yep.
tell my other coaches, I'm like, they're on my team right now. I'm going to keep them on my team. And here's why. Do you have any stories of how, like, you've not wanted to do something and then you have, and it's actually benefited you that you can offer the listeners?
Yeah, I think we all just don't want to, especially early on with players and families, you want to keep them happy with you, right? Like you don't want to, example that I always say is like I had, and again, it's just really personal and just using the person's name, like Anthony Black, when we recruited him, his family, Jennifer Black, the mom, we were super close and through the process and we got to know each other. And again, I'm saying this name because he plays in the NBA, but it was a real moment for us and him and the parents is like, hey, we really need you to push him. And we were pushing him. We're going through the fall. We're pushing him into the season. And there was more that we needed to get out of him, and we couldn't break down the wall. And I always look back at this kind of moment, and this is more than so much the player plus the parent, but she was getting on us that we weren't getting almost the most out of him, that he was just okay with it. I remember we were playing Ole Miss, come to a timeout, and Coach's Muss is talking, and then I said something like, "Hey, Anthony, you got to run back," or I did something like that, and he rolled his eyes and gave me something, and I got on really hard. Like, like I'm tired of now of you not answering the bell. You're not like your mom was right. You don't want to be pushed. Like I started throwing personal stuff in the middle of the game, like really personal about our relationship and the mom. And we went through all this. I took him off. I was like, sub him out. We got after it. goes out and he just dominates. He plays like he, and after the game, we go out there. She texts me. She says, "Can you meet?" I'm like, "Oh no." So we meet outside the gym. This is NBA player. Mom comes up and she's like, comes up and just gives me a hug. She's like, "Oh, I'm so glad you did that finally." Or, but it was a moment of, but he needed it. She knew it. She knows her son better than I do. We weren't afraid to do that. We had gotten on him and coached him hard and pushed him, but it was maybe we hadn't done it, or I hadn't done it personally, I should say, to that level in front of the group in an intense moment. We had to go through it, and then everybody showed their true colors, and it really helped us. Now, that's not how it always has to be. It doesn't have to be that, but you have to have that uneasiness at times to make sure that it's just like any relationship. You have to argue and fight when you're brothers and sisters. And just a moment of that, and she still texts me today, like on my son's birthday. Like, so those are the things that I think can connect people a little bit more. But you also have a parent that's okay with challenging their son and daughter.
Even if not, I think there's also the things that happen, which you probably hear sitting there as a parent watching your kid play, where you got somebody chirping over here, right? And it's like not necessarily making it back to the coach or whatever. If people would just have those, let's just call them conflict moments, like
Yeah.
the relationship on the backside is going to be better than avoiding them, right? Even though it's uncomfortable initially. So I've taken the same conflict leads to intimacy. It's like lean into it because ultimately you're going to get somewhere better. It's going to be uncomfortable as hell. The back end is worth it most times.
Yeah, communicate. Rex Walters always said communication eliminates confusion, right? That's coming. And I think it does for everything. We all know that. Player doesn't know where they stand. And then a month later, that player is even more upset because they don't know where they stand. And then a month later, they're essentially a shell of who they were supposed to be because you never really talked it out. My number one thing in this program, the pillar of everything in any program that I ever lead is communication. It is, and you have to do it. And I think that these players now, like I'm getting a week of information right now that I just have, and I'm on my board. I have a whiteboard that you can write on, thanks to Coach Magpile, but it's like one of those walls where you can write on. And I got stuff right here in front of me that I'm looking at as we speak about each one. We're talking about. You're so good at talking, but you will not jog from spot to spot. You're so good at eye contact, but literally you never talk. You're really shooting the ball well, but you never rebound. So you just keeping it there, and we'll see kind of how they respond to it.
All right, let me ask you this one because this has been the thing that has been, I want to say my biggest challenge as a AD over the last year, 2 years, let's call it, trying to help coaches navigate situations, which is a lack of communication that isn't intentional. But let's say you're dealing with what we all know about basketball, right? Being number 1 through 5 is easy. You're playing a
Yep.
lot. 6 and 7, you're playing a lot. 10 through 15, you're not playing. So, but 8, 9, right? Those are the guys that have the toughest time a lot of times. And we don't think to be proactive in our conversations with them. And there's an empowerment of if it's important, they'll come talk to me, which we know isn't real. But as you step into this new role, and as you had 2 years at San Bern, like how are you being conscientious to the fact that you can't wait for them to come to you? Like you have to go to them. It's not enough for your assistant to talk to them and share that with you. You have to actively go and call them and say, let's go to dinner. Tell me what's going on with you. Like you know it, but you don't do it. And that's what I'm trying to push my coaches. It's like this kid's dying and their parents are struggling because you won't have a conversation with them because if there's something wrong, they'll talk to you. And they're always smiling and laughing. It's like that's all masking shit, dude. Like you got to dig in.
You have to that's part like what I think what you said though, and everybody goes through it is like the experience of those moments. If you've been through them, you know it's coming. And I think you brought up a great point. The moment that they're the ones walking into your office about it, you've probably messed up a little bit because they don't know why, right? They need to know why that's going on. And you can help them if you answer their why early on. And you can give them, and that's the one thing I would say. That's to your point. The biggest point is give them some time to change their situation. Don't let it be too late. Example that I always bring up when I was at Arkansas, Trey Wade was a transfer from Wichita State, 6'5", 234. He wasn't playing at all. He'd come in there for 1 year. He started just text me after every game to the assistant coach. I didn't come here not to play, all the stuff that we all hear. And I've told the story a bunch of times, so he knows it. And I just said, this isn't helping us. You need to fight through this. Tomorrow we're going to write up on the board what you need to do better, and maybe you'll play more. We went in, we had the talk. You need to actually make a wide open three. You need to rebound. So then in practice, he started doing it. He started standing out a little bit more, and like a minute here led to two. It truly did. It was that story, but we had the talk when we needed to have it. I didn't just push it. It wasn't because of me, it was because of him. But I talked to coach about it. Then coach went and brought him in, talked about it and said, look, we're going to need you. You got to be ready to do this, but you're not doing this. And he changed it. And he hit 15 points against Gonzaga in the Sweet 16 to go to the Elite Eight. Like he was our best player. He's the MVP of the game. So it's you when you feel it going on, if you don't, even if it's just in the weight room, you walk up to him and say, hey man, you're right on the brink, but you keep turning the ball over like in these moments. Like this is what's holding you back. And I'm sorry, but that's what you're doing. You have to give them those nuggets, like actual tangible things they can correct. Like I've told you since the summer in practice, your effort is like a C plus B minus. It's not an A. And this other guy is an A every day. He's not as good as you, but he practices harder, and I'm going to go with that guy. Just that conversation right there gives them, okay, well, then I got to practice harder. Like, and I think that you, to your point, we're not all perfect as coaches because it's the last conversation we want to have at times, but they're the ones that can honestly change your season because that player can end up being the guy that can have game-winning plays for you. But if you don't have him involved at the end of it, there's no chance for him to help you.
You also run into the issue in all sports, in our sport specifically, where you can only play five guys and you got a 15-man roster. And it's like, Coach, I want to play more. It's like, I want you to play more too, but who should I take out? Like, how have you taken and navigating that situation? And what advice do you have for others? And then I'll kind of share what we do.
Data driven nonstop. You give them as much information as you possibly can. This is the only week that we are here that I will not have data on anything we do because I'm just trying to get their bodies actually moving again and doing that. And this is like hard for me to have our guys actually just working out to work out. And again, we'll meet. I go a week of work and then a week of work with a meeting with the individual. Then I do another week or two of work and then another meeting to just keep helping them build up. But you got to give them the data nonstop, find it.
And what does that data look like at a average high school level, right? Let's say that's our listenership. They don't have the muscle men 3 by 5 foot postcards on the basket standards, right? What's real
Yeah.
data that your average high school coach can collect and utilize on a daily basis?
I think that if a coach, again, a lot of the coaches, even in the college level, aren't able to record practice, right? That's hard to do sometimes. So you do have to pick some things that you want to have data in, whether it's you really emphasize shooting, well, then you do that same drill every day and you emphasize that these are the top 4 or 5 shooters in that drill. You do a certain drill in terms of maybe you do a drill where you yourself watch like rebounding, right? You're looking at the rebound rate that they go to. Those are something. And then does the kid ever get deflection or steal in practice? Those are your 3 things that you're worried about. You got to pick what you want to be great at. Like you have to have, for me, it's like your rebounds per minute are huge. Like how long does it take you to get rebounds? That's a big piece of it. Are you getting assists? Are you actually passing the ball? Are you moving the ball? And then a huge one all the time is like, do you ever get a piece of the paint? And I think those are things like as a coach, you can look at, yourself and say you never drive or, you're not doing that. That helps a kid get more aggressive. It allows people to, if you're worried about shooting, to match that, which the only negative about doing it only on offensive stuff is like it depends on what type of team you want to be too, defensive. So again, we have a lot more film, but if you have film, then there's no excuse. If you film something, and I think to any coach, like I would say this, okay, in high school and even for me, Division II basketball, we had one head coach, maybe 2 assistant coaches. You can always start a tripod, keep it on the half court, and anytime you're in the half court, you can film that whole thing. It'll never move, and you have that whole court there, and you can get 4 drills done that you want to really evaluate every day. And so then you have to, I think as a coach, you have to be organized. So I'm going to do those things right there. I can record it whenever I want to record it. We can all figure it out and get it up there. And then you judge those guys on those things every day. So I think that's what you have to figure out and make sure the team knows that.
All right, last question because we're over time. I got 2 actually. One, and this is a quick answer. How have you shifted, or how are you still in the process of balancing feel versus data-driven decision making and choices, right? Because you have the old guard, which is if you take like the Moneyball baseball movie, how they're scouting players, right? Versus the Moneyball version. And then you got shot selection based on data versus feel. Oh, it's a good shot. Like, where are you on that spectrum and how are you navigating that?
It's a really good question. I am I'm still more feel. And so, like, example, and again, this is maybe not the right thing. In a tight moment, I'm not going to go on who's having the best game. I'm going to go on who's had the best days and games. So, like, when it comes to those moments, now I will say that almost more in game, like to fight my own emotional pool, to let my best scorer take those shots. I'll also look at like, who actually is producing that day in terms of a stat or in terms of that. But if a guy is shooting the best percentages in drills, and then when we get to practice, he's still 0 for 6. He's 3 for 14 in the first 2 weeks of practice. All that he does in practice is going to start getting thrown out because he's got to be able to produce it. So I'm a little bit of both. I like to have both. I do look at it. I think with each 10 games of the season, you really got to start like believing what it is even more so than what you want to, because it is who they are.
No, no doubt. And that's always the surprise, right? When you feel one way, you look at the data, you're like, no way. That's not what it
Yep.
looks like.
Yeah.
All right, last one, which is always the same, right? What have you most recently changed your mind on, coach? I used to be here. I'm now over here, and here's why I no longer am on that train.
That is the question. I would say that the biggest thing that I've changed my mind on right now is that the high school game is not valuable to college. Okay. And so what do you mean by that? I'm coming from San Bernardino where we had all transfers, right? And that's just the model of what we did there. At Arkansas, we combined both. And so I got in a little bit of a mindset, well, we needed older guys. And this is more of a recruiting thing. I think that for a team to be great, for a program to be great, there needs to be even more of a balance of all that. And you may say that's a simple thing, but I think that young people help older people in programs just as much as older help younger. And I think that in my experiences in the past, when everybody's the same, it's not good. Right. So I think more so than just the continuity, what I've changed is like we need more difference. Like we need more, like you don't want a staff of the same people. You don't want all me. You want a guy you want more balance. So I've changed my mindset. It's not about the fact that we just need this continuity. We need variety of human experience in our program to make us a better team of people. And so that it's not about just the high school thing. I maybe shouldn't have said that, but having just 6 straight transfers and you don't want all high school guys, you don't, but I think that helps. That's why a family's a family is because everybody's different. I think that's really changed my mindset. I think high school guys and I maybe shouldn't have been high school, but a junior college transfer as well, and international. I think that the variety of that is really special and powerful that maybe before I was like, hey, we just need 1 or 2 year transfers, from the US and that's what we got to do. But I've really changed on that.
Yeah, no, and at the risk of throwing things into the political spectrum these days is like you want diversity within your program in whatever way that shows up. Age,
100%.
right? Background, socioeconomic status, experience, all of that, because now everyone gets to learn from one another rather than just we all have the same background, right? And I think
Yeah,
that's
and I just think with all of us, we become better teachers, we become better people when we're able to like help somebody out.
yeah,
Like a young guy getting helped by an older guy, an older guy seeing the energy that this guy is going to walk into the gym with today because he's nervous as can be. He's never, that gets you going a little bit. And it helps me coach a little bit better, lead a little bit better. You have to bring a little bit more.
yeah,
Keep going back to it. I'm really big into empathy right now with
yeah.
understanding these guys.
Yeah, love that. All right. Hey, it's always fun. Appreciate you jumping on again. And hopefully we'll get one later in the year, at least a call to catch up and see how things are going.
Appreciate you so much. Thanks for having me. I love it.